Welcome back to Up Front. The election is months away, but Milwaukee County Executive Chris Abele is already up on television with a series of campaign ads. 2 new ads hit the air this past week alone. Abele might be trying to get out to an early advantage over his major opponent in the race, Democratic State Senator and former county board member Chris Larson of Milwaukee. And Senator Larson joins us now on Up Front. Senator, good to have you back on the program. What do you think this race will ultimately be about?
Well, I think it's going to be about who's in touch with people, who's going to be the person who's listening and looking up for the middle class, looking up for Milwaukee County, versus somebody who's grown increasingly out of touch and somebody who's been out of touch for some time. I'm born and raised here. I've lived here my entire life. My family's from here, and this is where I'm raising my family. And I think, unfortunately, this county executive, who I and a lot of other people helped elect, has grown out of touch and stopped listening to the people here.
When you say out of touch, what do you mean by that?
I mean, look, this is a guy who only holds the requisite number of public hearings that he needs to, and he holds them during the day. This is somebody who stopped listening to not just the public, but public officials who were trying to reach him when things like the MPS takeover legislation was coming through, or when he was negotiating his portion of the arena deal, which put county taxpayers on the hook for $80 million and said they were going to pay for that by chasing down the poorest in our community with bill collectors. You know, when we tried to reach out to him to be able to say, well, why are you doing this? Why? There's another path, right? Why can't we have a conversation about this? He refused time and time again. And instead, he's gathered more power for himself instead of leaving that power to the people. And that's why we've gotten support from people like Gwen Moore, like Sandy Pash, and like other leaders throughout the county.
He says, and he was on this program about a month ago, he says, look, I've had a number of accomplishments. We've been innovative in terms of policies that help some of the county's more vulnerable citizens. But I've also had to do a lot of the heavy lifting, getting the county's financial condition in better shape, making sure the pension system is sound, creating greater government efficiencies, even doing more in terms of economic development in the Park East. Does he get any credit for that?
Yeah, I mean, some of those things he worked with the county board on, and some of those things were rolling before he got there, right? The pension obligation bond settled that for the next 20 years. So he stepped into that role. A lot of the parks projects that we're working, a lot of the transit expansions were actually done under Walker, and he's just kind of kept them going and not getting in the way. But we still have a retracted system in the transit, in our bus system, and we also have among the highest fares in the nation. So he's done very little to expand or introduce new programs and new ideas. And if anything, he's actually stood in the way of ones at the county board. When they introduced a program like Ready to Work, which would hire the hardest to employ members of our community, he vetoed it down to 10% of what it was. When they had a program to make sure we had a living wage paid for workers, something most people would agree with. He not only vetoed it, but he fought against it. So he stood in the way of a lot of progress. Some good things have happened, sure, and he's going to try and take credit for those, even though they were introduced by other people. But there's a lot of things he stood in the way on.
You were a member of the former county board when it was a full-time job with a greater say in policy matters. Yeah. Do you think the former model was better than the current model?
Look, I think there's, I do understand that there's a lot of people who don't like the county board. I also understand that there's people who don't like Congress. The difference I have is that I don't think we should abolish Congress or abolish the legislative check and balance that we have in American-style democracy. If you don't like your leaders, elect somebody else. And if you don't like the people who are running, then run yourself.
Did you think it was working well, the former county board?
I think there were supervisors who I definitely disagreed with, who you would only see when you had 3 or 4 meetings a month. And I think that over time their constituents were getting to know that and were ready to kick them out. Those people don't last. I committed to being a full-time supervisor when I was there. Not everyone does, but that doesn't mean you say, okay, let's get rid of this American-style check and balance. And if anything, I think we've erred too far in giving all this power to one individual, including land sales. You know, he has unilateral authority over the county board, or the county board has no oversight over land sales, including the museum, the airport, and the zoo. That's just scary to think what he could do with that. And to paraphrase Kanye West, no one man should have all that power.
I'm running a little short of time, but you mentioned the new role. The county executive now has a new role in education in Milwaukee.
Yeah.
Recently passed legislation sponsored by Republicans gives the county executive the authority to name a commissioner who's supposed to help with efforts to improve some struggling MPS schools. You've said that if that had been presented to you, you've been county executive executive, you would have said, I want nothing to do with that.
That's right.
Why?
That's right. Because the people who wrote that legislation have no interest in bettering education in Milwaukee.
No interest. You could say that with certainty?
I mean, we have 20 plus years to prove that, right? They introduced the voucher program 25 years ago, and they said that this is competition that'll improve the system, it'll improve everybody. They're not saying that anymore. All they're saying is they want more money with less accountability. They introduced this legislation, the same folks who gave the largest cut to education in our state's history, and then attacked teachers and compared them to terrorists. These are not the people who are interested in bettering education. So I agree with Tom Barrett. When they went to him, he said no, because they don't have an interest in bettering education. And we would have said the same thing. It's important to know the whole book and not just read the latest chapter and pretend that you're going to be part of this, where you move into a school, and as the legislation says, you fire every teacher and every administrator there. That's not a way to build up a school. That's not a way to build up a community.
Even though they said they're not going to take over any schools.
I think it's great that they're agreeing with us now, but if you look at what his rhetoric was when this was introduced to compare where it is now, I think it's great that he's finally listening to people. I just find the coincidence of us running for office and all the supporters, the thousands of people reaching out to him, suddenly changing his mind in an election year. What I worry about is what he does after that election, which is why we're running, which is why we're going to win.
Senator Chris Larson, the Democrat from Milwaukee, who is challenging Chris Abele, one of the challengers to the county executive. Thanks for being with us. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Mike. Yeah.
You bet. Our editorial partner, WisPolitics.com, will keep you up to date with election coverage throughout 2016. You'll find it all on the election blog at WisPolitics.com. We've been hearing a lot about an angry electorate. It's driving the candidacies of outsider candidates. What are voters so angry about? We have hard data when Up Front continues.